Hello everyone, welcome back to my podcast. My name is Ari and I'm the host of this podcast. And you guys, I am so excited to tell you what book I am going to be talking about today. It's a middle grade and it's called The 13th Circle by Kathryn Holmes and MarcyKate Connolly. You guys, I read this book in like 2 to 3 days. It was so good. So let me go ahead and tell you what this book is about and what you can expect from The 13th Circle. So this is a middle grade book, as I said, and it is around 300 pages, more or less. I think it's like 310 pages, if I remember correctly. And we are following the two main characters on the cover of the book, which, look at the cover. It's so amazing. Wonderful cover art. You can already tell what the story is going to be about. I love the illustrations. They're really well done. So a quick little shout out to Brittany Bond and Elle Witt. This is a beautiful cover, so good job, you guys. But yeah, so this book follows the two main characters, and their names are Kat and Danny. And this book starts off with them not really being friends. They start off because they are paired together because they are entering this science fair because they both love science. So they start off as being friends, not by choice, but throughout the story they do grow to become better friends, obviously through the ups and downs of a new friendship. But I love their little like dynamic duo. They're so cute, and I love just like everything about how their friendship works. They're very understanding of each other, and I think they're just really great characters. Also, the writing in this book was so good. I felt like I was there with the characters the whole time. It is also dual POV, so each chapter is from the opposite character. It's from Kat, Danny, so it goes back and forth, which I really liked because it gives more insight on that character and how their life is kind of personally and maybe at home. So I think it's really special that we can get both sides of the story as the reader, and we know what the other character doesn't. So the story follows these two girls are trying to win a science fair, and the project that they pick, or really one of the girls picks on accident, is to study the alien crop circles. Now, Kat, which is the one on the left of the cover, she looks a little bit more funky and weird and out there. She is the one who is trying to prove that aliens are real and that aliens are the ones doing and creating these crop circles that appear every 13 years. While as Danny, which is the character on the right with the brown hair, she is trying to disprove that this is aliens and trying to find an actual scientific answer to this, but they don't know that they're working against each other. They think they're working together, but Danny's working against Kat, trying to prove a different theory, and Kat doesn't know that for the majority of the story, so that is also a very interesting aspect of it. But I really loved the book. It was really interesting. I also loved how it was pretty scientific at times, but it wasn't too scientific to where it was like really boring and you didn't understand anything. It explained everything so well to where I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. That's so interesting. Because they're talking about like they have to run tests because it's all for a science fair project, and they're running these samples on soil and the wheat stalks and corn stalks, and it's so interesting and fascinating. And I asked one of the authors, Kathryn Holmes, which is the one I'm also going to be doing an interview with. I know, so exciting. I asked her if this information was all real, and she said that MarcyKate Connolly, which is the other author, did a lot of research for this book, and that she, like everything that's scientific, she definitely did her research on. They both did. They worked together. Also, I think I kind of forgot to mention, but yes, this book is written by two authors. They co-wrote it together. MarcyKate Connolly, you might recognize her name. I've done an episode with her in the past. I reviewed her 2 Hollow Dolls books and also A Breath of Mischief, so that was really fun. Be sure to go check out that episode where I do an interview with MarcyKate. And now in this episode, I'm going to be doing an interview with the other author of The 13th Circle, which is Kathryn Holmes. So I'm super excited for that coming up later in the episode. But yeah, so that's what this book is about, and I love the moments in books like this where everything is explained. You know what I mean? Like in mystery books or just any type of book, there's always like a page or two near the end where they talk about everything that you didn't understand. It all comes to light and you understand everything and you're like, oh my gosh, it all makes sense. When it happened in this book, I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, no way, and it all made sense, and I loved everything about that part. So I really loved that moment. Like I said, the writing was really good, and it's crazy that it was written by 2 different people because the writing pretty much seemed the same throughout, which is very good. It flowed very well. It did not seem like it was 2 different people writing, but yet each character had their own like character, obviously, so it was really, really well done. MarcyKate Connolly and Kathryn Holmes did a fantastic job with this book. I really enjoyed reading it. I read it so quickly and everything about it was amazing. So if you guys want a book filled with aliens and crop circles and science fairs and trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, and also going on these crazy adventures, maybe possibly trying to uncover something that the government is trying to hide, super fun stuff like that, this book is basically X-Files meets Scooby-Doo. It's amazing, you guys. You have to check it out. I'll have the links to purchase it in this this episode description, so be sure to go check that out. But yeah, I think I've said everything really about this book. Basically, just go check it out. It's so amazing. I love it. The story was really great, and while I love the story and the characters and the adventure, I also learned a lot of new things. It made me want to go do my own investigation on Crop Circle, so that was super fun to do for a little bit. But yeah, I love this book. Good job, MarcyKate Connolly and Kathryn Holmes. Another amazing book. I really enjoyed reading it. Thank you so much, Kathryn, for sending me this book and for getting it to me and for signing it. So amazing. I'm so happy that I get to own a copy of this wonderful book. I am definitely going to be rereading it and recommending it to anyone who wants any type of book, really. It's so great. Be sure to go check it out, you guys. And before I do the interview with Kathryn Holmes, I have a super quick message from MarcyKate Connolly that she wanted to share in this episode. So here it is.
Hi, Ari. Thank you for featuring the 13th Circle on your podcast. It was such a pleasure to write, and I'm so looking forward to hearing the episode. This is such a labor of love for me and Kathryn to write this story, and if all goes well, hopefully we'll get to write many more in the series.
Thank you so much, MarcyKate. I really appreciate that. It was so fun to read your book and feature it on my podcast. Thank you for writing an amazing book with Kathryn Holmes. And now, you guys, here's the interview that I got to do with the co-author of The 13th Circle, Kathryn Holmes. Hi, Kathryn. Thank you so much for doing this interview here with me today and taking the time out of your day to do this. I really appreciate it. Before we begin with this fun interview, I just want to say thank you so much for sending me your book and allowing me to feature it on my podcast. It was such an amazing book. The adventure of it all was just so much fun. So thank you for sending me your book. And before we get started, how is your day going today?
It's going great, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
That's great to hear. And of course, it's my pleasure to be able to interview such an amazing author like you on my podcast, so thank you. But now moving on to the first question I have for you today. How and when did you know you wanted to be an author?
I've always been a bookworm and a storyteller. As a kid, I read constantly, and I wrote poems and short stories. I was also a dancer, so I was telling stories through movement. In high school, I was editor of the school newspaper, and in college, I double majored in dance and English literature, and I took as many creative writing courses as I could squeeze into my already packed schedule. All of that said, I didn't actually try to write a whole book until I was in my mid-20s. I'd been working for a couple years as a magazine editor when I felt the itch to get back to writing fiction. So I applied to go to graduate school for creative writing, and during my first semester at the new school, I got a book idea that would follow me through my years in that program. I finished the first draft of that book as my master's thesis, and by the time I got to the end, I was completely hooked. I had no doubt that I wanted to be a published author, and specifically an author of books for kids and teens.
Oh, that's so cute to hear that story of how you've been working for this and having this passion since you were very young. I know you said you were a bookworm and you were always reading. That's me right now. I'm in high school and I am always reading a book. I finish a book and the next day I'm already 50 pages into another book. I love reading books. That's obviously why I do this podcast and why I get to work with such amazing and cool authors like you and even MarcyKate in one of my other episodes. It's so cool to be able to work with the people that brought to life the books and stories that I love to read. So it's super amazing, and I think that's so cool how during your school years you have always had this passion to where you applied your passion to your education to where you can learn better and then become a better writer. So I think that's super cool that this has been a dream of yours for a while and now you're finally achieving it and you're doing so great, let me tell you that. I love when authors tell me that they've been doing this for so many years and they've had a passion for it for so long, because I know it probably feels so amazing to finally get your book out there. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is your first middle grade book. It's your debut middle grade, which this is an amazing first middle grade, so congrats on that. But now moving on to the second question I have for you. Are any of the characters in your book, mainly the two main characters, Danny and Kat, are they based on any people in your personal life, or are they somehow a little bit based on you?
So I wrote the character of Danny in the 13th Circle, and my co-author, MarcyKate Connolly, wrote the character of Kat. Kat is very much based on MarcyKate as a child. She likes to say that Kat is young MarcyKate, but with the volume turned up to 11. MarcyKate even saw a UFO in 4th grade. Danny, on the other hand, is a bit less like me. Danny's biggest dream is to become a scientist, to run her own lab one day. I always wanted to work in the arts, whether as a dancer or a writer or in some related field. Danny's whole family is made up of artists, so as an aspiring scientist, she's the odd one out. I sometimes felt like the odd one out in my family growing up because I was so artsy and other members of my family were not. So that's a character trait I pulled from my own life, even though I kind of flipped it around. I also worried a lot about fitting in as a tween. I tended to feel like the expendable one in my friend group, like maybe they were all closer to each other than they were to me. Regardless of whether that was actually true, it was how I often felt. So I gave those worries to Danny. She frets a lot about fitting in and being left out, and I definitely wrote that emotional arc from personal experience.
First of all, that is so cool that you said MarcyKate saw like a UFO or a spaceship when she was younger. That's so fun. And also that you said Kat is basically just like her when she was a kid. I think that's super cool. And for your character that you wrote, Danny, which I love both of them equally. They're both amazing characters. I love how you said that you just feel like when you were a tween and when you were a little kid, you felt like you never fit in and you were the oddball out. I also love how you said you switched how you felt in your family to how Danny felt being the oddball out. I liked that little aspect of that. But how you said that you felt like with your friends, you weren't maybe like the closest one. And I think that was a really good thing that you decided to put into Danny's like character arc, because I remember feeling like that when I was like in middle school and even like before that. So I could definitely relate to that, and I think many other people can as well. Even like when you're older, and even if like in your 20s or 30s, 40s, whatever, you always have people around you that maybe you don't feel as close to, or they don't feel as close to you, but you feel as close to them, if that makes any sense at all. But I liked how you put that. I think that was really relatable, especially for kids that will be reading this book. I think they'll be like, oh, that's how I feel. I'm not alone in that. So I really loved that. And yeah, I like that you wrote Danny. Like I said, I think she's an amazing character as well. So great job writing her. Great job to both you and MarcyKate for writing such amazing characters. And as I said in my review, I wouldn't have known this book was written by two different people, by two different amazing authors, might I add, because it flowed so good. The characters were like polar opposites at times, but also that at other times they were like best friends. And I loved that. There was so much in the characters. They were not empty characters. They were so full. And I felt like I was right there with them the whole time. But now moving on to the next question I have for you. What was it like co-writing a book with MarcyKate Connolly, or really just co-writing a book in general? How was the experience different from writing a book on your own? And how did you guys come up with the story of the 13th Circle?
Writing a book with a co-author and friend was the best. MarcyKate and I made a fantastic team from our very first brainstorming session back in 2017. I was the one who had the initial idea for writing a middle school take on the X-Files, and I reached out to MarcyKate, who I knew online through the Kidlit community. We actually published our first books 1 week apart in February 2015, and we'd become online friends leading up to our debut year. After I asked MarcyKate if she'd be interested in writing this middle school X-Files book together, we had an epic video call to brainstorm. Then we worked together to come up with beat sheets, or basically outlines showing the major beats of the story. We each had one beat sheet for our characters, for their emotional journeys. We also had a beat sheet for the overall narrative, which included which of the two characters needed to narrate each scene. Once we had those beat sheets, we got to work. We alternated chapters, and we wrote mostly chronologically, following our beat sheet outline. We had an ongoing email thread of hundreds and hundreds of messages where we threw out new ideas, asked each other questions, and made suggestions. We were in communication fairly often, even when one or the other of us had to step away from our book for a bit for some reason, such as a deadline for another project. I loved reading each new scene as MarcyKate added it to the book. Even if I knew a certain plot point was coming, I didn't know exactly how she'd tell it. Plus, having two brains working on the story instead of just one made it easier to tackle thorny plot and character problems. We could talk it out and usually come to a solution more quickly than I might have been able to do on my own. Even though each of us took charge of one of the two main characters, this book was very much a collaboration from start to finish. It belongs to both of us, and I know we both had a blast writing it. We are really hoping to get to write a sequel as well.
Oh my gosh, yes, please do. Please write a sequel. I would love to read it and maybe even feature it here on my podcast for my listeners to hear. But oh my gosh, yes, y'all made such an amazing team together as authors. Y'all are both amazing authors on y'all's own, and then put y'all two together. it's like a beautiful masterpiece. So yes, I hope y'all do come out with a sequel or a part 2. And yeah, I love how you said it's not my book, it's not her book, it's our book, it's y'all's book. It was really special, and I think it's even more special to share something you're so proud of with someone else that you are really close to. And also how you said it was writing with an author, it was writing with a friend. Also, did you see that you started this project in 2017? Because that is literally crazy. I know books take a long time, and I know you're working on other projects in between, but 2017, that is crazy. Like, I was so much younger then. Like, I wasn't even dreaming about doing a podcast where I read books, so that's crazy to hear. But yeah, I also think it's so cool that I've been able to do this interview with you, because you are the first author. This is the first book that I've ever done and featured on my podcast, and interviewed author where you're the co-author. Like, you're not the full author of this book, so it's kind of like I'm missing half of the other part of the book, but it's cool because I've already gotten to do an interview with her. But I just think that's so cool. You're my first ever book where there's 2 authors a part of this amazing story, so that's super fun for me. This was definitely a first, but it was an amazing first. But yeah, I loved your response. Thank you for that. And now the last question I have for you is more of a fun question. It's about aliens, because of course the 13th Circle is about aliens and crop circles, which very fun topic. But the question is, do you personally think aliens are real?
MarcyKate would say yes for sure. I'm more of a maybe, which I suppose makes sense given that I wrote the character of Danny, who is much more of a skeptic than Kat. The tagline of the X-Files was, "I want to believe," and I suppose that's where I fall. I want to believe that aliens are real, that there's more to the universe than we can see or imagine, but I'm not totally convinced.
I mean, no, I get you. I understand exactly where you're coming from. Sometimes it's hard to believe things and know things are true if you have no proof of that. But also at the same time, like you said, I think like we're only one planet in the universe. There has to be other life forms. They may not look like the green aliens we think they do look like, but I think they look more similar to us than we might think if there are aliens out there. Because yes, I do believe there are aliens out there, or at least another life form out there, because like I said, we're one planet in the whole universe. I doubt we're the only ones that like are living. But anyway, yeah, and I also love how you had to be kind of the one that doesn't believe in them so much to make Danny more believable. And MarcyKate had to be the one that was crazy like Kat and was like, yes, I will tell you why they are real and I will prove it to you. So I think both of y'all's characters together made Danny and Kat, and they were amazing characters, as I've said so many times. But yes, also this was like the perfect interpretation and version of X-Files in a middle grade book for kids. I really enjoyed reading it. But yeah, unfortunately that brings us to the end of this interview. It was so much fun getting to chat with you. I really had a blast. So thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and you too.
Okay, you guys, I'm back. That was the interview that I got to do with Kathryn Holmes. She was so sweet. It was so nice to chat with her about her and MarcyKate's amazing book, The 13th Circle. Be sure to check it out. You will not regret it. You are not going to want to miss this book, you guys. It is so good. It's called The 13th Circle. It's by Kathryn Holmes and MarcyKate Connolly. It's a middle grade book. It's basically X-Files meets Scooby-Doo. So be sure to check it out by clicking the link in this week's episode description to purchase The 13th Circle. And with that, book lovers, always remember, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. And I will see you guys very soon for another fun author episode. Bye, friends!